Recently, we have seen decline or death of political science. There we tried to understood why decline happened, and we tried to understood we tried to understood views of David Easton as well. David Easton as well. So behavioralism emerged due to that decline. Decline started. Decline of political science started. Governments start did not start did not did started ignoring governments started ignoring political scientists. Political scientists and their funding got shortened or funding got cut off. So political scientists got startled and they had to find a way out of cutting the reduced funding. So what political scientists said or what political scientists tried to do, right? Behavioralism is basically a an attempt to take political science out of decline. It is an attempt to take political science out of decline. How to take political science out of decline, right? Is taking by changing the very core of political science. How to stop decline by changing the very core of political science. What is the very core of political science? Core of political science is philosophy. It is empiricism and it is history. You can say even law. Like people like Bentham are there, so even law. So what is at core of political science? Mainly philosophy, but observation, history, and law as well. Right? When behavioralists saw that with with the way political science today is, nobody is nobody is asking us. Nobody is inviting us to developmental conferences. So they wanted to change the very core of political science from philosophy, empiricism, history, law to make it pure science. Pure science. What is pure science? What is pure science? What do you think is pure science? What is pure science? Pure science is physics. Pure science is physics. Pure science is chemistry. Physics, chemistry, biology are based on observation, experimentation, verifiability, and systematization. Systematization, repetition of outcomes. This is These are some features of pure science. Physics, chemistry is a pure science, right? Sociology and economy pivoted to pure science way before political science, right? Sociology and economy started behaving like pure science. Started behaving like pure science. Political scientists saw this, that sociology and economy are behaving like political science. Behaving like pure science is like behaving like natural science, and government are asking them to come to the redevelopment conferences. So we have to make political science pure science as well. We have to make political science as natural science, like natural science, right? What it basically tries to do is to take away philosophical core of political science so that discipline can discipline is able to solve contemporary challenges. Political science had to become like pure science because sociology and economy, psychology started behaving like natural sciences, and they had appealed to government. They were getting invitations. So political scientists got fearful and started behavioralism. That is with goal of making political science a pure science, and that is with goal of methodological revolution within political science. What methodological revolution basically means is changing approach of of research from philosophy to technique or methods. That is the idea. What is behavioralism? It is basically an attempt of political scientists to to make political science like natural science, and it is a methodological revolution which wants to develop such techniques which can be helpful in public policy directly. That is the idea, right? That is the idea. To develop such techniques, to develop such techniques which can be applied in public policies directly, to make political science a pure science, a natural science, a pure scientific discipline. This is behavioralism, right? We have seen we have seen influences some influences we have seen on behaviorism. Some influences we have to see. So we have to see intellectual forefathers, intellectual influences or forefathers of behavioralism. Who are intellectual influences or forefathers on behavioralism? First, there is Machiavelli, who talks and who says politics is not ethics. Right? Politics is not ethics. He focuses on empirical observation. He wants to and he sees things as they are. He suggests and he gives techniques to Prince to shape his public policy. He says, "Be clever like fox, brave like lion." Right? So that is the influence on behavioralist as well, whereby a scholar gives techniques in a way or towards public policy. Then there is Hobbes. Hobbes was the first person who tried to mechanize political science, right? If you remember, Hobbes wanted to have Newton-like place. Not Newton-like place. Newton was after Hobbes, but place. There was scientific revolution which was happening around Hobbes. We see people like Galileo, Copernicus around his time. So what he wanted to do, he wanted to give a mechanical theory in political science, right? He says universe is made up of matter, man is made up of matter, right? Universe is made up of matter, man is part of universe, man has brain moves in direction of pleasure and pain. This is a very mechanical theory, and it gives resolutive compositive method as well to understand something. Break a complex phenomena into parts, analyze cause and effect of all of them separately towards a particular factor, and give a theory. So resolutive compositive method. Then there is Lord Bryce. Lord Bryce said or observed that we need facts, facts, facts. Right? This is a very good quote to start with. Start in answers of behaviorism. We need facts, facts, facts. Then there is Graham Wallace. Graham Wallace. In his book Human Nature in Politics. In his book Human Nature in Politics, he says instead of studying institutions, we should study human nature. Right? We should study human nature. This human nature later gets with this human nature will be helpful in understanding later theories of international relations, theory of Morgenthau, theory of Kenneth Waltz. So, right? Instead of institutions, study human nature. That is also very observation based. Then we see Arthur Bentley in his book The Process of Government, talking about studying informal processes. There is Charles Merriam, right? Charles Merriam is actually father of behaviorism. Charles Merriam, the father of behaviorism, belonged to Chicago school. Belonged to Chicago school. Belonged to Chicago school. Charles Merriam. He says we should study politics as study of power. In his book New Ages of Politics, there is Caitlin. Caitlin suggests that we should make political science value free. Right. There is Laswell as well. Laswell in his book says politics is basically study of who gets what, when, and how. Right. So behavioralism is basically a study. Is basically a study is a is a discipline of political science analyzes which analyzes factual problems, which tries to analyze a concept, a issue in factual way. Right? These were intellectual forefathers, of which Charles Merriam of Chicago School is father of behaviorism. Then we have to see exponents as well. Two big exponents: Robert Dahl in his paper Behavioral Approach to Political Science. In his paper Behavioral Approach to Political Science. But but the real behavioralism starts with David Easton. David Easton is the person who started the uh, actual debate on behavioralism. In his paper, in his paper, Current Meaning of Behavioralism in Political Science. Current Meaning of Behavioralism in Political Science. In this paper, he highlights 8 elements of behavioral approach. Right? 8 elements of behavioral approach, and he gives lecture as well. Lecture in American Political Science Association. He gives lecture as well, whereby he gives 8 intellectual in the name of 8 intellectual foundation stones of behavioralism. Behavioralism. He gives 8 foundational principles of behavioralism. What are 8 foundational principles of behavioralism? 8 foundational principles of behavioralism, of which first is of which first is regularities. What is regularities? Right? we are going to understand 8 intellectual foundation stones of behavioralism, of which first is regularities. What is regularities? Right? Regularities is basically saying that human behavior shows observable regularities. Right? That human behavior show observable regularities. Right? What it basically assumes, what it basically assumes, it assumes that within a particular situation, let's say there is situation X. In this situation, two different people will act in a similar way, right? Because human behavior show observable regularities. This wants to say, let's say we are studying Iraq War, Iraq War of 2003. Behavioralist will say that Trump or Obama or Bush, Bush or let's say Clinton, Bush or Clinton will act in the same way in a particular situation. But human behavior is not so predictable. Human behavior is not constant. Even a single person within a similar situation or within the same situation will act in a totally different way. So first principle is regularities, whereby it assumes that human behavior show observable regularities. Right? First principle is regularities. Second principle is verification. 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 What they basically say by verification. Verification is verification is a principle of scientific theories. Let's say I am giving a, a Big Bang theory. Big Bang theory. Now there is enough evidence in this world that before 13.8 billion years ago, in 13.8 billion years ago, there was a Big Bang. Before that, there was nothing. After that, there was a Big Bang, and our universe formed within that moment. Right? There is enough evidence that there is this start, and universe is expanding in this way. There is enough evidence. There is enough verifiable facts for this scientific theory. What behavioralism essentially tries to do is to bring this principle of verification in theories of political science. Theories of political science. Verification in theories of political science is not possible because theories of political science are speculations, right? Let's say Plato's theory of justice. Plato's theory of justice verifiable? Is Plato's theory of justice verifiable? No, there is no way to verify it. If Plato say, if Plato say that there are three kinds of souls, what is the way to verify it? There is no way. There is no way to observe, right? Let's say I Plato categorizes me as a copper class at 20 years of age. Then something happens within me and I start studying. And I actually gain so much knowledge that I can become philosopher king. But Plato had made that choice that after 20 years you are in a particular class. So there is no way. There is no way to verify a particular theory of political science. Right? So verification in political science is not possible, but behavioralists say that Behavioralists say that verification of theories should be the norm in political science. Verification of theories should happen often, right? Verification is second tenet, second foundational stone of behavioralism. The third foundational stone, the third element of behaviorism is techniques. It is techniques, right? It is techniques. What do you mean by techniques? Techniques means methodologies. Let's suppose to verify, I have to verify Newton's three law of motion, right? Newton's, let's say, third law of motion. For every action, there is equal and opposite reaction. So what I will do, I will take a bouncy ball. I will take a bouncy ball. I will hit that bouncy ball in this wall. That ball will come back to me with equal and opposite force. This is a very basic technique to verify a particular scientific theory, right? A scientific theory can be verified. This verification and this techniques, behavioralists say we have to bring to political science. They say to verify theories, we need particular techniques. They suggest, right? Let's say there is theory of justice of roles. Behavioralist will say we need to develop a technique which will justify or which will test theory of justice of roles. Right? This is the fourth principle. Then there is quantification. Right? Quantification is basically data gathering. Data gathering and you quantify things. Data gathering and quantification. What does it mean? Again, go back to Rawls' theory of justice. I develop a technique to test Rawls' theory of justice. I develop a technique and I start applying that technique in real world. I will gather some data, and on base of that data, I will quantify how Rawls theory of justice works or does not work. But is it possible? How are you are going to quantify a philosophical argument, right? You cannot quantify a philosophical argument, but they give principle of quantification. Then there is principle of systematization. What systematization basically want to say, right? What systematization basically want to say, that we need to systematize study of political science. We need to basically systematize cause and effect between theories, right? We need to we need to give corroboration between hypothesis and data gathered. I have some data gathered, I have some hypothesis. If a discipline is systematized, there is going to be data to verify this hypothesis. This systematization behavioralists want in political science. Next principle is integration. Behavioralists want integration of political science with natural sciences like physics, chemistry, biology, computer science, right? Data gathering techniques, data analytics, statistics. These are all natural sciences. Behavioralists want integration of political science with natural sciences, sociology, psychology, economy, right? They want their integration with natural sciences. Traditionalists integrate political science or discipline with philosophy, with history, with institutionalism, with law. Behavioralists want integration with natural sciences. Then seventh principle is value-free analysis. Value-free analysis. What is value-free analysis? Right? Value-free analysis is basically like saying that remove norms, remove values from your research. Focus on facts, facts, and facts. Neutral, be neutral, minimize scope of values, and be limited to facts, facts, and facts. Let's suppose I go to a political science university and I start my research on caste. I'll start my research on caste. Let's say I start my research on caste. If I keep value of humanity or a sense of brotherliness, a sense of victimization, so to say, or sense of right, a positive attitude towards all of the caste. If I lose that, and if I say I will mark you with respect to your caste, I will write this. This is positive with you. This is wrong. This is negative with you. This is how you live. This is how you don't live. And I will lose all my senses with respect to values. I won't take in my judgment your historical situation. I won't take in my judgment the values and the ideas which were given to you with respect to caste from time immemorial. I leave all of that. I just take your data and I make judgments of it. Right? I just take data that this caste is having more poverty, this caste is doing more crimes, etc., etc., etc. And I make my judgment on because of that and just say that because this data suggests that certain caste is a certain is in a certain way, will that analysis be fully holistic? Will that analysis be comprehensive? It will not be. But it is exactly what behavioralism suggests, that with respect to your research, lose your sense of value, focus on facts, facts, facts. Then there is eighth principle, which is pure science. Right? It is summation of seven above values, and when you adopt above seven values, you make political science to be pure science or natural science. Right? After this, after this, behavioralism changed political science in some ways. Behavioralism changed political science in some ways. The first, the first way in which it changed political science, or it was useful somewhere, or behavioralism, behavioralism impacted something, was is that it arrested decline of political science. It arrested decline of political science. It stopped decline of political science. First, because it stopped decline of political science, it got some legitimacy, and people started seeing usefulness of it. Behavioralism is useful in electoral behavior. Electoral behavior. What is electoral behavior? It is study of behavior of people in elections. How people believe, how people vote in election, on what factors people vote in election. That is the study of electoral behavior. Behavioralism is very important in electoral behavior, right? Then behavioralism is very important with respect to comparative politics, right? Comparative politics. Behavioralism basically emerged as one of the emerged due to comparative politics. Comparative politics. What is comparative politics? Comparative politics is a discipline which works on comparative method. So you see importance of behavioralism in comparative politics. What is comparative politics? You use technique of method to make your judgments with respect to politics. So you can see influence of behavioralism on comparative politics because comparative politics is very methodological, right? That is there. Comparative politics is very methodological, influenced by behavioralism, right? Then it led to standardization of or discipline. Discipline became more standardized, right? And discipline became somewhat scientific, somewhat systematic. But even though behavioralism had a lot of positives, there were a lot of limitations of behavioralism as well, right? Behavioralism need a lot of money to conduct research because you need manpower to surveys, you need manpower to conduct surveys to collect data and all those things, right? And even if even if you employ a lot of manpower, you you undertake the whole process, the whole technique, the conclusions which emerge out of this whole exercise are very similar after after philosophical analysis of the same topic. To understand that Indian politics works on money and muscle, you don't need to go to the people and ask them how they have been affected by money and power in politics. You just have to apply your mind and think how Indian politics works, and you will get the answer that Indian politics works on money and muscle. You don't need money and surveys to conduct research for that, right? Then the second limitation was given by Marxist. Marxists say that behavioralism is descriptive. It does not want to change anything. It does not change anything. It is it is not value free, but it is it is biased towards Western values, right? That is the criticism of behavioralism. And traditionalists, of course, give criticism of behavioralism by saying that it limits the scope of discipline, that it holds hostage discipline to facts and figures, and the actual decline of discipline was due to behavioralist only. You can give reference of Leo Strauss and Dante Germini. So this is the idea. As behavioralism was criticized by nearly everyone, as behavioralists themselves saw limitations of behavioralism later changed to post behavioralism. We are going to understand post behavioralism in the next lecture. I hope this helped. Thank you so much. Bye.